Please repeat. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki krishnaya vasudevaya devaki nandanaya cha nanda gopa kumaraya govindaya namo namah. So Hare Krishna Prabhuji and Mataji, we've been studying from third canto, and so far last time we did chapter number 5, and chapter number 5 was titled Vidurji asks questions from Maitreya Rishi, and we discussed about the creation. The chapter was titled Vidur talks with Maitreya. You all know, or if you Vidurji went to Ganges to meet with Maitreya Rishi, and he was asking him some questions. Right? And who referred him to go to Ganges to meet Maitreya Rishi? Uddhavji. So he had met Uddhavji before. So he went to meet Maitreya Rishi. Now as he goes to Maitreya Rishi, now Vidurji asked a series of questions. And he basically went there to meet with him because Uddhavji told him, if you want to know about Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna has spoken Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, those verses, seed verses to Uddhavji. And Vidurji told Uddhavji that you please accept me as your disciple. But Vidurji said no. Yes? Nanu te tattva samradha. Yeah? No. If you want to know about that, in front of me, Lord Krishna had instructed Maitreya to pass on that knowledge to you. So you should go and see Maitreya Rishi. So he goes and meets Maitreya Rishi on the bank of Ganges, and then he asks a series of questions. And one of the questions that he asked him about was that how the Supreme Lord creates this. Sa Vishwa Janma Sthito. Yeah? How he creates, Janma as in how he creates this universe and how he maintains this universe. Sanyamarthe, to maintain this universe in a nice way, right? Krita Avatara, Pragrihita Shakti, how he take various incarnations. Supreme Lord, to create and maintain this universe, he takes various incarnations. How he does that? And he accepts various Shaktis, various powers he accepts. How does he do that? So please tell me about it. And then Maitreya Rishi tells him, yes, I will tell you about it. And I'm going to tell you about Sthiti, the maintenance, yeah, the appearance of this universe. Udbhava, Sthiti, Udbhava, Ant, Arthe. Sthiti, maintenance, Udbhava, how it manifests, and then how it gets annihilated. I will tell you, Yatha Purvam, how it was earlier described. I'm going to speak to you. In that regard, now last time we went through the whole creation process. We will look at that. But today's chapter now, that leads to the chapter number 6, which is today's chapter. So let me share my screen. And we'll take a verse from this chapter and then we'll discuss the whole chapter. But just so you get the context. Verse number 37. So it's 3:6:37 if you take any reference in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, but otherwise it's here on your screen as well. And this is today's chapter. Chapter is titled creation of the universal form. So before he starts describing the actual creation, how the human beings, the various living entities are created. So before that, he will describe the creation of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. Okay, this is the verse number 37. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Ekantalabham vachasonupumsam.
Ekantalabham vachasonupumsam.
Ekantalabham vachasonupumsam.
Ekantalabham vachasonupumsam.
Sushlokamole Gunavadamahu.
Sushlokamole Gunavadamahu.
Sushlokamaulir Gunavadamahu.
Sushlokamole Gunavadamahu.
Shrutescha Vidva Bhirupaya Kritaya.
Shrutescha Vidva Bhirupaya.
Shrutescha Vidva Bhirupaya Kritaya.
Shrutescha Vidva Bhirupaya.
Katha Sudhayam Upasamprayogam.
Katha Sudhayam Upasamprayogam.
Katha Sudhayam Upasamprayogam.
Katha Sudhayam Upasamprayogam.
Word by word translation by Srila Prabhupada ki. Please repeat. Ek anta, the one which has no comparison. Labham, gain. Vachasa, by discussions. Nupumsam, after the Supreme Person. Sushlok, pious. Maule, activities. Gunavadam, glorification. Ahu, it is so sad. Shrute, of the ear. Cha, also. Vidvadbhi, by the learned. Upakritayam, being so edited. Katha Sudhayam, in the nectar of such a transcendental message. Upasam Prayogam serves the real purpose, being nearer to. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki. Please repeat. The highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the ear is served just by being near them. So you understand the meaning? Yeah? So this is Maitreya Rishi speaking to Vidurji, and what he's saying is that the real purpose of ears and your speaking is served by talking, by discussing the guna, the qualities of Sushlok Mole. Sushlok Mole is the activities of the Supreme Lord, who is described by the choicest of words, the best of poetry. Yeah. So speaking about his qualities and hearing about his katha. Katha Sudhayam. Sudha is the nectar and katha is the story. The pastimes, his pastimes are like nectar. So the ears should taste it. Right? So the learned man, and it is said that the learned people have compiled all these scriptures to serve the best purpose of the tongue is to discuss the pastime of the Supreme Lord, and the best purpose for the ears is to hear those pastimes. So this is the best purpose. Yeah? So this is the concluding verse by Maitreji, but we will get to this when we discuss the whole chapter. For now, just focus on these two things. Yeah. So this is the purpose. Sir. Now let's hear the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Please hear Srila Prabhupada ki. The impersonalists are very much afraid of hearing the activities of the Lord because they think that the happiness derived from the transcendental situation of Brahman is the ultimate goal of life. They think that anyone's activity, even that of the personality of Godhead, is mundane. But the idea of happiness indicated in this verse is different because it relates to the activities of the Supreme Personality, who has transcendental qualities. The word Gunavada is significant because the qualities of the Lord and his activities and pastimes are the subject matter for the discussion of devotees. A rishi like Maitreya is certainly not interested in discussing anything pertaining to mundane qualities, yet he says that the highest perfection stage of transcendental realization is to discuss the Lord's activities. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore concludes that topics regarding the transcendental activities of the Lord are far beyond the transcendental realization of Kaivalya happiness. These transcendental activities of the Lord are so arranged in writing by the great sages that simply by hearing of those narrations, one becomes perfectly self-realized. And the proper use of the ear and tongue is also achieved. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is one of the such great literatures, and the highest perfection state of life is attained simply by hearing and reciting its contents. Srila Bhaktivedanta purports ki. Okay. Now let's do Manglacharan and then we will discuss further. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padkamlam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Pitam Tam Sajivam Savadetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubha Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. भूतेर महद्भिर यैमा पुरो विभो निर्मायशेते यदमोष पुरुषा भुङ्क्ते गुणांशो दशषोडशात्मकम् सोलंक सृष्ट भगवान् वचांसि मे श्री कृष्ण शरणं शरणागतं कथा अमृतं सतत पीबतं भक्ति वेदांत मार्ग पंथनं सर्वलोक ऋषिदेव जन्म प्रसन्नम सर्वलोक ऋषिदेव जन्म प्रसन्नम. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji. Please pray and please bless me. May the right words come at the right time. May we are truly able to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, and all the Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. So, at the end of the last chapter, if you remember, what had happened was there were 23 elements created. 23 basic elements were created. And initially, there was nothing. So as Karanodakshaya Vishnu, as he was breathing out, the universes are coming out of the pores of his body. And as they come out, they are in the state called Pradhan. In that state, there is nothing, there is no movement. It is like you take, for example, it's like a dough. You haven't made anything, you just prepared the dough, it is sitting there. So that was the form. It was inactive. It was not activated. But when Karanodakshaya Vishnu, he looked at, when he glanced at that Pradhan Tattva, then it got agitated. When it got agitated, the various modes of material nature, they became active. And they became active, then it got converted into called Mahat Tattva. Let me put it on the screen just so people can follow. Otherwise, it may get confusing. It's a little bit too technical, but I really hope and pray that just as much as you can grasp, as much as you can register, don't worry too much. Screen is a bit slow. Yes. So this is what we discussed last time. So this is the creation of the ingredients. The first stage is the creation of the various ingredients. Take, for example, if you are cooking a vegetable, you get, let's say, cooking a potato vegetable and beans. So you get potato, you get beans, you get spices, you get oil, you get everything. So all the basic ingredients for the creation were getting ready. That was the first stage. So this is all the basic ingredients were created. Right? I'm saying 23 elements. Just focus on the 23 elements. So the first one is called Mahat Tattva. It's fine if you can't register, that's fine. So Mahat Tattva, which is the total substance, everything. Right? Now within it, there is another second element is called Ahankar. Ahankar is Abhiman and also is called false ego. Right? Karta, I am the doer. That's where everything starts. Right? So that is the second element it got created, right? By the agitation of material modes of nature. And the third element is called the mind. Yeah. And then 20 other elements. Those 25 elements are the gross elements. What are the 5 gross elements?
The ear, nose,
No, no.
gross elements are
Gross elements. Speak in English, please. Earth, fire,
fire,
ether, water, and air. 5 gross elements. Yeah. It's very simple. We just try to follow as much as we can. Don't get confused. So 5 gross elements were created. Right. Then 5 working senses were created. What are the 5 working senses? Hands, legs, mouth, regeneration and evacuation. These are the 5 working senses. 5 gross elements and 5 working senses. Then 5 knowledge acquiring senses. What are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses?
ear, nose, eyes,
Ear,
tongue,
nose,
and touch.
ear for the sound, nose for the smell, tongue for the taste, eyes for the see, and touch. So 5, these are knowledge acquiring senses. By touching something, you judge. By hearing, you can understand. So that's why they are called knowledge acquiring senses. Now you can use this to acquire the knowledge, or you can use this to gratify the senses, the working senses, to gratify them, right? You can use ears to hear gossip, or you can use ears to hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. That's what you are doing now. You can use tongue to honor prasadam, or you can use tongue to eat something else. Yeah. So they are called knowledge acquiring senses. So 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 working senses, 5 gross elements, and the 5 are the object of senses. Tanmatra. So with the tongue, taste. As you can see, so the first, this is how the development happened. So the first subtlest element was sound, before the creation sound. From the sound, then came ether. After ether, then it got the touch, right? And then touch, then became air. So these on the left hand side, they are all tanmatras. They are the object of the senses. Sound is the object for the ear. Touch is the object for skin. Form is the object for eyes. And taste is for tongue again. Yes? And then smell is for the nose. So 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 gross elements, and 5 sense objects, Mahat Tattva, mind, and false ego. So these 23 elements were created. Now, when these 23 elements were created, they were not combined. Like you said, you haven't started making the vegetable, you haven't started the cooking yet. You got potato, you got beans, everything is, they are in an unmixed state. Then what happened? These elements, personified elements, or you can say the deities, because all of these, they have the demigods assigned to them. So they personified and they went to the Karanodakshai Vishnu and they prayed to him. They said, my dear Lord, you have created us to perform your activities. Now, please, what is the instruction for us? We are lying in a separate state. Because we are lying in a separate state, we can't be used. So please guide us. And then all these demigods, they went and offered, or personified elements, you can say that, or the demigods, they went and offered prayers to the Supreme Lord. And then Supreme Lord, Karanodakshai Vishnu, then he realized that, they are not performing. Right? And that's now we're going to discuss in our next chapter, today's chapter. So today's chapter, it has 4 sections. First section is development of the gigantic universal form. Second section is manifestation of different demigods from the universal form. Yeah. Third is the development of planets, living entities, and the various varnas. Yeah. And the last one is Maitreya Muni felt unworthy to describe the Lord's unlimited glories. So that is the concluding verse of this chapter. So the development of the gigantic universal form. Yeah. So go back to that. Now what happened? When they were lying in an unmixed state, they went and prayed to the Karanodakshai Vishnu. Then Karanodakshai, after hearing, now Maitreya Rishi says that asamitya nishamya. Nishamya, after hearing the prayers of the demigods and noticing that they are lying in an unmixed state, then that Supreme Personality of Godhead, he called out his Kal Shakti. Kal Sangyam Tada Devim. You know, as they say Kali. So this is Kal Sangyam Tada Devim. Right? Bibhrat Shaktim Urakrama. Urukrama. Urukrama. Lord is also addressed as Urukrama. And why the word Urukrama is used here? This is used because when Lord Vaman came, he just took one step, and in one step he measured the all planetary system, right? So that is why he in this verse Matthew is addressing him as Urukrama, because this shows the greatness, and because we're going to be speaking about the gigantic form of the Supreme Lord. So that is why he is calling Bibhrat Shaktim Urukrama, which is called Kala Sangyam Tada Devim, that Kali Devi. You know, from Kal became Kali Devi, which is Bibhrat Shakti. Bibhrat means cohesive, which can now combine, which can now mix these 23 elements. So Supreme Lord, he called that Shakti, which is Kal, or also called Kali, right? The time, right? That Devi. So Supreme Lord he called that Shakti. And by calling that Shakti, then what did he do? He entered into those universal elements himself through that Shakti. Yeah, are we together? He entered using that Kal Shakti, he entered into those elements together. Yuga Pada Avishat. Yuga Pada means simultaneously, Avishat as in he entered into all the 23 elements. Supreme Lord. Now that he has entered into those 23 elements, then the next step, what it is, so anu prasto, so anu visto bhagavan. Now that Supreme Lord entered into those elements, yeah, cheshta rupena, now the kriya shakti, now to create some movement within those elements. Kriya rupena tam gana, into those elements, now the Supreme Lord has entered as kriya shakti, as activity, you know, as the energy to perform the activity. As he entered into that, then what did he do? Bhinnam yojamaya asa. Because they were lying separately, now he entered into them and he connected them. He mixed them. Yes, he mixed them, and then as if suptam karma prabodhayan, as if their living entities or the elements were sleeping. They were woken up from the sleep. So he entered into those elements, and as if waking up somebody, right? Now Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport what actually happens in Prabhuji Mataji when the dissolution happens. Let's understand. So there are partial dissolution and there is a complete dissolution, right? Mahapralaya. When the dissolution happens, all the living entities, they enter into the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu at the time of partial dissolution. When Brahmaji goes to bed, we will study the calculation of time in the following chapters. When Brahmaji goes to sleep, then all the planets, right from the lowest planet, which is called Patal, up to the heavenly planets, they all burn down. Bhagavan Sheshnag is fire is coming from his mouth. There is so much wind blowing, there is rain, and it's complete pralaya. All of us, we enter into the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. All the living entities, we enter into it. Right? So this is at the time of partial dissolution. When the full pralaya happens, then along with this whole universe, it enters into the body of Karanodakshaya Vishnu, who is lying in the Karana ocean. Okay. It's okay if you can't register. I don't want to confuse, make it too technical, but just so you understand the process. Right? So when the dissolution happens, now dissolution has happened, and when the creation starts again, Hare Krishna, please come. When the creation starts again, the universe comes out, and in that universe, in the Mahat Tattva that I said, all the living entities, they are actually in that Mahat Tattva. All the souls, we are in that Mahat Tattva. So the souls who were able to perform the Bhakti Marg, and who are able to get out of this conditional life, they go back to Golok, back to Godhead, back to Golok. But who could not, who are still conditioned, they go back into the body of Karanodakshaya Vishnu, and when the next creation happens, they come out again, and then the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease continues. Then they transmigrate from one body to another body, one species to another species, and that process continues. So now this is now at the time of creation. So what I'm saying is now going back to our verse. Now when the demigods prayed to the Supreme Lord, now it is that state when the creation is starting and all these elements are unmixed. In the unmixed state, then Supreme Lord, what did he do? He called his Shakti Kala Sanyam, or Kali, Mother Kali, what we call it. And using that energy, the Supreme Lord entered into all the 23 elements simultaneously. He entered into the 23 elements simultaneously, and then he mixed up all these elements. And when he mixed up all these elements, then the first thing that gets formed is the gigantic universal form. Yeah, are we together? Imagine this whole universe is one body. We are still inside the body of the gigantic form. So that's how it takes the gigantic universal form. Now let me take you to the next screen. And
Prabhuji, we can't see anything.
Mataji, let me share my screen. Actually, Zoom sharing we have to do. Can you see Mataji now?
Ji Prabhuji, thank you.
Sorry, Mataji, I did not realize. Apologies.
That's okay.
Okay, so the creation of the universal form. Let's get our focus. As I said, Lord Karanodakshaya Vishnu, remembering the prayers of the demigods, he saw the creative functions suspended, asamitya, right? As in unmixed state, they were lying in the unmixed state, those 23 elements. Then what did he do? He sent his Vibhrat Shakti, right? Urukrama, as I said, Vibhrat Shakti, Urukrama. So there's Vibhrat Shakti, which is cohesive energy. He sent his cohesive energy, which amalgamates all the elements and forms a golden universal egg. Initially, like I said, it was just like a dough, but now that within that form, 23 elements are separated. The Supreme Lord, by his glance, he has transferred energy into that universal egg form, and it is like a golden egg, and it is floating on the Karana ocean. So our universe is also floating in that Karana ocean. So it is floating there. It is floating there, and they have been mixed up, right? The golden egg, and it for 1,000 celestial years, it is floating there. Now, consider it like a fetus, right? It's like a womb, fetus. So now Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he is going to enter himself into that. He has energized those elements by his question. Now they are in a mixed state, but he wants now the spirit has to come. You know, if a child is in the womb, the child doesn't grow if there is no spirit. If there is a dead body, if there is a body lying on the floor and there is no spirit, the body doesn't do anything. And again, if the child is in the womb, if there is no spirit, the child doesn't grow. The body doesn't grow. Body stops growing. So it only grows when there is some spirit in it. Right? So now Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he enters into that golden universe, right? And he sort of impregnates that. He has entered into it, he has impregnated that golden egg. And all the living entities, including the demigods, were enlivened as if awakening from sleep. Suptam karma prabodhaya. Suptam, sleeping. Karma is as if you are sleeping and then somebody wakes you up and say, hey, look, you have to perform this activity. Now there are two things to understand here. It is very clearly, we have discussed this before. There are two things. Actually, three things: Kal, Karma, and Swabhav. Kal is the time. Time spans across everything. And Karma is what we deserve. And Swabhav is what you desire. You may have hundreds of desires, but what you deserve is based on your previous karmas. You get any body even the body that you get is based on your previous karmas. You got a certain type of body, you get certain parents. Prabhupada used to say, if you wanted to live in a palace, you had a desire, but you don't deserve to live in a palace like a king, but you still desire to live in a palace, you could live like a cockroach in a palace. So Lord is very kind. He will fulfill your desire. So your desire and your karma and swabha, based on these two things, right? So now all the demigods and the living entities are enlivened as of awakened from the sleep, right? Now that Virat Purush, globe, inside the globe, that's universal form. Look, consider this as one big body. Consider it like that, okay? These trees are hairs on his body. So there is only one Supreme Personality of God, that Virat Purush. He now further differentiate is going to happen. Then that Virat Purush, he differentiated into the functioning universe. Now it has to become a functioning universe. Okay, elements are mixed, but the functioning, the Kriya Shakti. It was a Karan Shrishti, now Kriya Shrishti, a functioning universe. So that the living entities are given a chance to realize to fulfill their desires and perform their actions so that they can go back to Godhead. Very often people ask, Prabhuji, why is this place created? If this is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, if it is full of miseries, if it is impermanent, why it is created? It is created so that we can atone for the karmas that we have done. And you have to atone for good as well as bad both. Not just the bad karma. Even you have done the good karma, so you have to atone from them also. You have to become neutral. When you become neutral, only then you are qualified to go back. Yeah. Bhagavan Krishna, Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, Bhakti Yukto Jahati hai Ubhav Sukrito Duskriti. By performing devotional service, you can relinquish yourself from both. Ubhav, both. Sukrito, good karmas, yeah, and the bad karmas. Duskrito. Tasmat yoga yujjasva yoga karma sukosha. Therefore, Arjun, get involved in the yoga. And yoga is not body gymnasts. Yoga is to connect with the Supreme Lord. And Tasmat yogaya yujjasva. Therefore, Arjun, put all your energy to connect with the Supreme Lord. Yujjasva. Because yoga karma sukoshalam. Yoga is the perfectional stage of all the actions that we are performing. Yeah? Clear? So now based on that, you getting your body, now they are being enlivened so that they can perform their actions. And now Virat Purush, he differentiated himself into three Shaktis, into three energies. Let's understand what are those three energies. The one energy is called consciousness of the Jivas, Jiva Shakti. All the Jivas, they have consciousness. So that which is in your heart, right? Then the second is the Prana Shakti, life airs. Now how this body is to function? Because the conscious get its energy from the prana. So there are 10 type of airs, 5 primary airs and 10 secondary airs. We will look into. And then the third Shakti is called Atma Shakti. Atma Shakti means self-identification. How do you identify yourself? That is also 3 types now. So the first is called Adhyatma, which is subtle senses. Yeah? And Adhyatma is when you are self-identifying yourself with the mind and body. If you identify too much with the mind and body, then you are at the Adhyatma level. So this is basically the level of consciousness, the pureness of the consciousness. So that is one level. Then the second is the Adhibhut, which is the gross sense and the sense objects. If you identify yourself with the material objects, if you say, I have such a big house, I have a car, I have so much money, then you are identifying yourself with the material objects. Or you are identifying yourself with this body. I'm so handsome, I'm so beautiful, I'm so strong, I'm Mr. India, I'm Mr. Universe, I'm this, I'm that. Mind, you say, I'm so intelligent, I'm a PhD. I can solve the most complex problems. I can unassemble a plane and I can assemble a plane back together. So you are identifying yourself with that skill. So that is the level of consciousness. So the lowest level is you identify yourself with the body, with the material elements. Second level of consciousness is mind, right? You are connecting with the mind. And the third is called Adi Daiva, which is self-identification as a servant of the Lord. That is the most important. So once again, this categorization is done because it is because of our desire. You cannot blame Krishna, you cannot blame God for that, because this is what we desire. We want to identify ourselves. I'm such a good actor, I'm such a good player, I do this. So Krishna says, okay, there is a facility for you to do that. Okay. So 1, 3, and 10. What is 1? Jiva, consciousness. Right? So you see, this is a proper science. This is not, this is not somebody's mental concoction. The elements got created, then the elements got mixed up. Then those elements have to be given an opportunity to perform some activities. So they are given a consciousness, right? As per their desires and as per their karmas, what they deserve, they have that consciousness, right? Then they get this life air so that the body can function, right? And then they have Atma Shakti, soul, right? Okay. So this is for the creation of the universal form. Now this type of creation is done. Now let's look at the life airs. So these are 10 type of airs, Prabhuji Mataji, 5 primary airs and 5 secondary airs. So the pran is through the nose. The breathing through the nose is called pran air. Then the second is apan, right? The evacuation, the air that you pass. Then saman, adjust food in the stomach, sounds as belching. You must have experienced that sound. When you eat food, then there is some tummy noise, you can feel that. So that is adjusting. That is required for body to function. See, not all these doctors, they have done all the research, but it is already created by Krishna. All arranged so nicely even before. And then udan, through the throat. If somebody chokes your throat, then you are not able to breathe. And then that is different air. That is not what you are breathing from the nose. Yeah, that is called udan. And then the fifth is vayan. The total air circulates throughout the body, which keeps the body functioning. So these are the 5 primary airs. They are provided in the beginning itself. See? And then we start identifying, oh, my body. I'm going to gym. I'm looking after my body. This belongs to me. No, if one of these airs not there, then how will you function? Yes? So we have to be very respectful. The body given to us. Don't misuse it. Use it to serve Krishna. However you are. Kubja, she wasn't very beautiful. She had a hunchback, but she wanted to serve Krishna. No matter. So the point is to serve Krishna. When you serve Krishna, then everything becomes beautiful. Yeah. And then these are the 5 types of secondary airs. Now, facilitate opening of the eyes and mouth. Do you realize? You can't even, some people, I've seen, some people cannot open their eyelid. They cannot. They have problem opening the mouth. And we take it for granted. Right? So this is where the gratitude comes. You can stand. Ability to walk. Right? Contraction. This air. How you do like this. Right? Devadatta, help relaxing by opening the mouth, yawning. Even yawning also there is one air. Yeah? And then Dhananjaya, it helps sustenance. So these are different airs. It's fine, you can't remember, but the whole point behind this is, remember what did Vidurji went to ask Maitreya Rishi about? He went to hear the Bhagavatam from him. But instead of hearing Bhagavatam, and what was his question? His question was that Supreme Lord, Vishwa Janma Sthiti, for the creation and for the maintenance of this universe, Krita Avatara, Pragrihit Shakti. Please tell me about his avatars, the various incarnations. But before you understand the incarnations, you have to understand his potency. Before he starts describing about the past times, you will not believe. How will you believe that if somebody tells you Krishna, he had he could jump from the mountain when he was running? How could you believe if somebody tells you he drank the whole fire, the forest fire? Will you believe that? Before you get to the past time, you need to understand his potency. how this whole thing is created, you will not be able to understand that. You will have logical questions. Prabhu, what are you saying? He drank the fire? It's impossible. I can't believe. But before you go to that, you understand this whole creation. Even opening your eyelids, we are dependent on him. What to speak of your other activities? You can't even pass urine without the mercy of Mitra demigod, with the presiding deity of evacuation. What control you have on your body? Nothing. It's very important. So we appreciate that we've got this body. Okay. So let's go back. Universal form is created. The Supreme Lord, gigantic form. He divided himself into three, and there are 10 life airs, one consciousness, and third is the Atma Shakti. Yeah, we're together. Okay. Now the next thing is when different locations are generated in the universal form. Now, other thing I want you to visualize this universe is one gigantic form, one Virat Roop. Purush, consider a human being formed, right? Who has a head, who has arms, who has stomach, who has legs. So this is visualized, the universal form is like that. Now that form is created. Now within that form, different locations are generated in the universal form, which presiding deities. For example, in that form, now there'll be a mouth, there'll be arms, there'll be ears, there will be nose. And from that form, we are all coming. You understand? When Lord Krishna showed his Virat Roop to Arjun in Bhagavad Gita, Arjun is saying to the Supreme Lord, my dear Lord, Anek Baho Darvaktra Netram Pashyami Tvam Ananta Rupam. He says, I am seeing Anek Bahu, I am seeing multiple arms. Udar, I am seeing multiple stomachs. Vaktra, mouth. Netram, eyes. Not just two eyes, multiple set of eyes. And then I see your Anant Roop. Anant as in never ending. So he could see all the living entities inside that Supreme Lord. That is the Virat Roop. Yeah? So same that Virat Roop now Maitreya is describing to Vidurji. Now that in that universal form, the various places will be created. Mouth will have a presiding deity. Ears will have a presiding deity. Eyes will have a presiding deity. And with the mercy of all those deities, Prabhuji Mataji, our whole body operates. Okay. So please, let me just read it, please, here. When different locations are generated in the universal form, which presiding deity, which is called Adi Dev, will reside there along with its sense organ, which is called Adhyatma. And what is the sense object or action of that organ? Expressing himself in words. Okay, I think it will all make sense when we... I hope it doesn't get too technical, but please hear out as much as you can. How Lord separated himself into different forms of demigods. Now he is going to, different demigods are created. They are coming out from that, from his body. And when different locations are generated in the universal form, presiding deity. So there are three categories. As we said, the first box, you look at Adi Bhut, Adhyatma, and Adi Bhut again, because they are performing the activities. And in the middle, we have Adi Dev and Adhyatma. Okay, this will now make sense. So imagine that universal form. In that universal form, mouth appeared. When the mouth appeared, then the controlling deity of the mouth is fire. So the fire deity went and sat in that location. Along with, he took voice, which is a subtle organ. Some people, you have a mouth, but they still cannot speak. Mouth is there, the gross organ is there, but the subtle sense is not there. Understand? So that means that presiding deity is missing from there. So mouth is created, then the presiding deity is fire. Along with fire, the subtle sense is voice, and then he sat there for what? And with the sense object, express oneself in words. You get it? In the universal form, mouth is created. Presiding deity for the mouth is fire. Along with the fire, the subtle sense to speak and with that subtle sense to speak, what they do is expressing the words. So this is now universal form. The gigantic universal form is now various body parts is being formed, and the various demigods are going to sit there. Okay. Now, like this, I'll just talk through them, run through this. This is all. I mean, you can understand. Then the next one is the palate, talu, right? Inside the mouth that you have. With it, the tongue. So the demigod is Varun, and the subtle sense is tongue, right? Which is jibba, and which is for tasting everything. I give you an example. If jibba is different than this real tongue, if you eat something hot, you say, I burnt my tongue. And if you eat something after that, what will happen? Can you taste it? So that subtle sense is gone. So which is called jibha. The gross tongue is there, but you have lost that sense because of burning the tongue, right? So you need the mercy of Varun God, the demigod Varun, right? So that's why we say look after. Don't eat insane things. Don't eat anything bad. Nostrils. When the nostrils appeared in the gigantic form, the demigods are Ashwini Kumars, twin brothers, right? They went, and along with the nose, Grahan. Once again, if you have cough, if you have a blocked nose, can you smell? You still have a gross nose, but you can't smell. So that is the subtle sense. Understand? So that subtle sense has been deactivated. You again need the mercy. You can take amoxicillin, you can take all these tablets that we normally do. But the real problem is we have offended the presiding deity. That is why you have to take care. Whatever we eat, whatever we put inside the body, yeah, it is at a gross body level, because after some time the gross body stops functioning. What do you do? But those senses, for that we have to be respectful. Yeah. So that deities, presiding deities, Ashwini Kumar. Similarly, eyes, Akshan. People are blind. They still have gross eyes, but they can only see because of the mercy of the presiding deity. Yes. So that is eyes. So presiding deity is Surya, sun, and they get eyesight is the subtle sense, and the activity is to see the various forms. Then the next one is the gross skin, charm, which is called charm, right? Which is the wind god, and the subtle is the skin, and that you realize tactile knowledge, touch. This is the actually these are five are the knowledge acquiring senses. These five, the first one, and then ears, karna, dig devtas, the various directional demigods, and the hearing principle. Once again, the subtle sense is the shrotra. People who are deaf, they have physical ears, but they can't hear. Yeah, so they need that functioning. And then skin, which is hairs on the skin. These are the subtle. When you feel the air blowing, it is because of the hairs on your skin, not the gross skin, the charm, not that. But if you have, you can feel, right? You all have, when you say, I'm getting, hairs are standing on my skin. So that's how you feel the wind is blowing when the hairs stand. And then genitals. So these are now working senses. So the presiding deity is Prajapati. And this is for regeneration, right? Then the next, evacuation. So the presiding deity is Mitra, right? And the subtle sense is the organ of evacuation. And then we pass urine and stool. Then the working sense, hands. When the hands appear, once again, keep your focus, visualize that universal form, gigantic form of the Supreme Lord. Only one human being, one big, large Virat Purush. Various body parts are appearing, and various presiding deities are taking their places there now. And from that, we get a similar form. That's how you get arms, you get nose. But there, some people are born, you say handicap, this and that. Now that depends on your previous karma. You together? Now hands appear. When the hands appeared, Indra, who is the presiding deity for hand, and he went and sat on them, and with the hands performed buying and selling, as in giving and taking. It's not, it's the gross hand is one thing, but give and take. You're performing those activities through the hands, right? So that's Indra. Then legs. So the presiding deity for the legs is Upendra, right? And it's also called Vishnu, not Vishnu, not that Vishnu. It's the presiding deity. It's the legs. Sometimes you have the legs. You say, Prabhu, I don't feel like walking. I don't have energy. So there is that subtle sense, which gives you energy to walk, which makes you feel starting to walk. So the 10 ears and plus these subtle senses, and with the mercy of presiding deities. So see in your body how much science is working. Take your own body. It is not just that you get up, decorate yourself and you go. No, so many things in the background are working to make this body functional. Yeah. And then intelligence. Yeah. Intelligence of the presiding deity is Brahma. So Brahmaji went and took his position at that spot. Don't confuse that. Brahmaji is still to come from the navel of the lotus navel of the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Don't confuse these two things. Lord can create as many demigods as he wants for functioning of the universe. Right? So Brahmaji appeared. Then heart, as the heart appeared on that universal form, right, which is the seat of mind. So the mind is here. Mind is not here, by the way. Very often we say, I use my mind. Mind is here. So Bhagavatam confirms. So the seat of mind is in the heart. Hridayam, right? Presiding deity is moon and all the mental activity. Then material ego, which is ahankar. Presiding deity is Rudra, which is an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Yeah? And then with that, we're starting self-identification. Yeah? And then the consciousness, which is the total energy, Mahat Tattva, right? And so he's the controlling deity. And then Chit and able to conceive the specific knowledge. Once again, don't get too confused, but just so you understand, like I said, we appreciate this body is not a dustbin. You throw anything into this body, no. This is how precious it is. Yeah? We got this. So that is why Mahaprabhu says, right? Bharata bhumite haila manusha janama yara. Janama sarthaka kari kara paraukar. You got this manush janam. You got this human body. So we have to use this carefully for the right purpose. That is so that we can appreciate. Okay, so that is the first section, creation of the universal form. Now in that universal form, once again, keep your focus. That universal form is created. The various presiding deities have come. They have taken their spot. Right? Now that universal form of the Supreme Lord, now the planetary system are also going to be created. From that universal form itself, various planetary systems will come. So from the head of that universal form, the heavenly planets will come down. Right? Demigods who are in Sattva, so who are in the mode of goodness. From the legs, the earthly planets, the human beings who are in the Rajogun. Yeah? In the 14th chapter or 13th chapter, Lord Krishna is telling that Urdhav Gachanti Sattvastha Madhye Tishtanti Rajasa. Jaganna Guna Vrattistha Adho Gachanti Tamsa. Right? People who are in the mode of goodness, they go up. So naturally, they are heavenly planets, they go up. Now the demigods who will appear from that head in the heavenly planets, they were in the mode of goodness. So they are already taking their position. People like us who are in the mode of passion, we appear on this earth. From that universal form itself, now they will come. All the souls, all the living entities are within that universal form. Yeah. And the from his abdomen, Bhuvar region. Bhuvar region is above the earth and below heaven. So that's where it's called Bhuvar Lok. Bhulok, Bhuvar Lok. Bhu is earth, Bhuvar is the between heaven and earth planets. So this is how from the body of that universal form, these planets are coming. Okay. Now these planets are creating. Now the next thing is manifestation of the Varnas. Now the various Varna will be created. Chatur Varnam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Ahankara Vimhudatma Karta Ahamiti Manyate. Lord Krishna has already declared. Now he's going to create various Varnas because these people, as per our desires, as per our karma, we will be put into certain category. Varna. What are the four Varnas? Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So these four Varnas will be created as well. Now from the mouth of the Supreme Lord or that universal form comes the Vedic wisdom. The Brahmanas come from his mouth. That is why when we see a Brahman, we respect him, right? And we give respect, we offer our obeisances, we offer charity to them, right? It is going as to the mouth of the Supreme Lord. And they are their role is also defined. They are the natural teachers and spiritual masters. The arms, from the arms of the Supreme Lord, Kshatriya came. Kshatriya, what do? They protect the citizens. Once again, keep your focus on the universal form. If you keep your focus there, you will understand everything. We are still at the universal form. The living entities haven't appeared as yet from the Supreme Lord. Okay. Then from his thighs, the means of livelihood for all persons, the Vaishyas, the mercantile class, they're going to appear for that. And then the legs, service for the sake of perfecting dharma shudras, all the shudras, and their duty, their role is to satisfy the Lord by service. Actually, this to satisfy the Lord by service applies to all the classes, not just shudras. It applies to Kshatriya, Brahman, and Vaishya as well. But they say sometimes being a Brahmana, people can get puffed up. People think, so there is pros and cons. They think I have some knowledge. That is why Prabhupada has said very clearly, or even Shastra has said, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. In Kalyug, everyone is a Shudra. For two reasons. We are Shudra. What do? They work for someone else. They go and work under someone else. They perform the menial tasks. We are all performing menial tasks because we are working at somewhere, we're taking the orders to take care of the body. We're performing all the menial tasks. So that's one reason. Another reason is we are all Shudra, so we all should perform the devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So there is no way out. Right? So there is a process now for us to elevate ourselves from Shudra to or how to perform the devotional service. Okay, now are we together? We're all together. So the gigantic form, all the demigods have taken their places. The various body parts have appeared in that form. From that gigantic form, the planets have been created. Right? In this chapter, we're not covering the three planetary system, but that we covered in the previous chapters. Right? So that has also been created. The heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and the lower planetary system. They are all within his body. Remember that picture that I showed you? Yeah, you remember all of that, right? So that has been created. Various varnas have been created. The classes of people have been, like, their role have been defined as well from that in that universal form. Now, after speaking all of this, now Maitreya Rishi tries to conclude what he has spoken to Vidurji. He tells Vidurji now that all these varnas have been created. All of them, their duty is to perform devotional service to the Supreme Lord under the guidance of a Guru. And then, having said that, then now he is submissively saying, now he tells to Vidur that Vidur, I am not qualified to speak about the glories of the Supreme Lord. Whatever I heard, I have spoken to you about. I'll tell you one story. Once there was this Pandit. He was very learned. He knew all the scriptures, and he was so popular. He, like everybody knew, he was well established personality. And as he was getting near to his death, he thought, I should get a guru now. And he thought of getting a guru. He found somebody whom he thought can be his guru. See, other way. So he went to his guru, and then he paid his obeisances, and he requested his guru that, my dear Swamiji, please accept me as your disciple. And then Swamiji asked him, okay, tell me, what do you know? And then he said, let me think. And then Swamiji said, okay, why don't you write on a piece of paper and then come back to me? He said, okay. Mata, is it hot? We can, Prabhu, is it working? I think it's not working actually. So he told his guru, he told Swamiji that I think I will have to write down. He said, okay, you go and write down. And that Pandit then went to write, and it took him 1 year to write down what all he knew. He started writing, I know this, I know this, I know this. And after 1 year, he went back to the Swamiji, and he gave that piece of paper to Swamiji. And when he gave that piece of paper to Swamiji, Swamiji said, this is too much. I don't have time to read. And I'm very soon going to die. You please summarize this. And he said, okay. Then he went back and he spent another 3 months to summarize what all he knew. He spent 3 months to summarize. He comes back to Swamiji again. And Swamiji looks at that. Swamiji says, no, this is again a lot. I don't have enough time to live. You please go and summarize this. He went back and this time he summarized only on 10 papers. And he came back very quickly. And then Guruji said, no, this is again too much for me to read. I'm about to die. You please go and summarize. And now he quickly went back into another room and he picked up a blank paper and he came. And he gave that blank paper to the Guru. And now Guru said, now I accept you as my disciple. Because until now you know so much. Right? Because now you have come blank. Now I can accept you as my disciple. So in the same mood now Maitreya, after describing all of this, he tells Vidurji that it is very difficult to describe the glories. Who can even dare to speak about that Supreme Lord? But he said, I have still made an effort. Yeah. Tathapi. He says, Tathapi, still I have spoken about it. Right? I have spoken about the glory of the Supreme Lord, but the question is, why has he spoken about it? He says, why I have spoken about the glories of the Supreme Lord is to purify my own senses. Kirtim hare swam sat kartum giram abhidhasitim. He says this tongue, giram, this tongue would have otherwise spoken something nonsense. This tongue would have spoken something nonsense. So, my dear Vidur, yatha mati yatha shrutam. Whatever I could understand in the disciplic succession, whatever I have heard, whatever I could understand in the disciplic succession for my own self-purification, sat kartum. Sometimes when we sit on the Vyasasana, we offer the prayers. That it is my own it is for my own purification. I'm speaking for my own purification. So he says, otherwise this tongue would have spoken something else because it is so unchaste. So that is why I have spoken about these glories. And then he says, not just that, Vidu, that the real purpose, ekant labham vachaso nupumsam. Today's verse now. So that's why he's concluding this chapter. He says, ekant labham vachaso nupumsam. Please repeat. Sushlok mauler gunvadamahu. So he says, ekant labham, the ultimate benefit for this tongue, vachaso nupumsam, of the living entities. The ultimate benefit of the tongue, of the power to speak, vachaso nupumsam, for the living entities is to sushlok mauler, the Supreme Lord who is described by the choicest of poetry, by the best of the words, right, is to gunvadam ahu, is to discuss his pastimes. And then shrutescha vidvadbhi. So Tvescha vidvadbhi guru rupaya kritaya. And for the years, the learned people have edited all these scriptures. For what purpose? Katha sudhayam upasam prayogam. Katha sudhayam upasam prayogam. Katha sudhayam upasam prayogam. Prayogam is the use, the best use for the ears is to hear the katha of the Supreme Lord. And that katha is what? That is like a nectar. Yeah, that is like a nectar to the ear. So this is the best purpose. Vidurji, as much as I could describe, I have described. And then he says, what to speak of my power to speak? He said, even Brahmaji, when he performed austerity for 1,000 years, Samvatsar Sahasrante, after performing austerity for 1,000 of years, Sahasrante, Yoga Vipakkaya, he was in the yogic posture. What did he conclude? That the glories of the Supreme Lord are inconceivable. So the reason I'm highlighting this, or reason this is the concluding part, is to Prabhuji Mata. Yes, we try to understand that, but it's okay. The real purpose is to hear and speak of the glories of the Supreme Lord. Let's not apply our tiny mind that how can that Supreme Lord has 10 mouths, how can he have 100 mouths? You know, when Brahmaji performed that Brahma Vimohan Leela, when he took away the calves and the cowherd boys with him, remember that pastime? Brahmaji is coming and he's crying. He's crying, he's bowing down in front of Krishna again and again. And he's standing up, he's bowing down, standing up, bowing down, he's crying. And then Brahmaji concludes. Brahmaji says, Janant ev janantu kim bahuktaya name prabhu. Manaso vapuso vacho vaibhavam tava agochar. Brahmaji said, my dear Lord, whoever says they know you, let them say they know you. As far as I am concerned, Manaso vapuso vacho, by my mind, by my words, and by my body, I am not qualified to even glorify. Vaibhav, your Vaibhav, your opulence is beyond my senses. That is spoken by Brahmaji. And that is why Prabhupada is going so heavy. He gives an example of frog mentality. Like a frog trying to measure the well. This is 3 feet by 4 feet wide. Like a frog mentality, we want to measure the Supreme Lord. We want to know his opulence. When Brahmaji has given up. So this is Maitreyaji, after speaking in his true humbleness, he is saying, no, I am not qualified. And then Vidurji asked, then what shall we do? What is the ultimate result? What is the ultimate purpose? And then Maitreyaji concludes in the last verse of this chapter. He tells him that aham cha anya ime devas tasmai bhagavate nam. That including all these demigods, Brahma and Shiva, everyone, all we do is we just bow down to that Supreme Lord. That is the only way, otherwise you cannot comprehend. So this concludes this chapter, Prabhuji Mataji, the creation of the universal form. Right? I hope we are able to understand, we are able to follow this, right? And like I said in the beginning and along the discussion, that the whole point is to we appreciate the potency of the Supreme Lord. We cannot understand, that's okay, but just by hearing, thus by talking, right? That's what Maitreyaji is saying, that he has purified his unchaste tongue. Then what to speak of our tongue? Okay. All right, so we stop here now. It's almost 7:32. So Kavita Mataji, Sandeep Prabhu will take your leave.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.